Were there other people calling you for jobs? Do you have any evidence of that you turned down because you were reserving time for them?
I didn't have anybody at that point in time because his project was going to be probably another 3 weeks between the buffet and then the bench project that they had added on.
Right.
Plus, they had discussed some other work as well, and I had at least a month booked for them.
So you now have a total of $4,550 that you've paid out. So after knowing about all of the problems, you reached an agreement with him that he would refund you $2,565. Why should you not be held to that agreement?
He would not pay me that. I tried for 6 months to get that out of him.
He gave you part of it, though.
And then he stopped. He was paying me like $50 every few months.
Okay, so how much total has he paid you from that amount?
$1,465.
$1,465. Okay, leaving a balance of $1,100 of the agreed upon refund. How do you justify not having to pay them the remaining $1,100 when you reached an agreement with them?
Because under Massachusetts law, if you enter into a contract, which I believe we had a contract,
yeah,
because of the text messages and because there was consideration because he made payment to me,
right?
It's a breach of contract on his part.
Which contract? The original contract?
Yes.
Yeah, but there was an original breach of contract that you settled with him with a new contract that you were going to pay him $2,565.
Yeah.
To account for all of the disputes you had over the original contract. So now you have a new oral contract.
Right. But, the other issue here is I've never heard anything about like quality issues from these people until I got the lawsuit in the mail. But never at any point did they say, we want you to come back and change this or change that.
Is that accurate?
We were trying to work with them, trying to get to a solution that was...
But if they don't communicate to me...
Yeah, I mean, that does create an issue, right? Because we're trying to assess your damages. And if he could have fixed some of these problems for free...
He couldn't.
I don't know what they're talking about with matching stuff, too. They never brought me and said...
Well, wait a minute. You can see the problems with that door, right? There's a huge seam in the middle that I can see from over here.
So those doors, he wanted me to cut them up and hack them up and put them back together in order to save money. So the issue with that door...
Did you cut it down the middle?
Yes. Because the panel was too wide.
Did you explain to them that it was going to look like that?
I think what happened with that is that's a raised panel, right? And it's meant to float, expand, and contract and all that stuff because it's solid wood.
Officer Finley, can you take him that door? The one on the right? Yeah. I want you to first take a look at the line up and down the middle.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be like that.
No, and you know what? I'll tell you right now. If they brought that to me, I would say, okay, I'm gonna take this back to the shop. I'm gonna sand it down. I'm gonna fix it. We're gonna make it right.
Right. That's an easy fix, right?
Yeah. If I knew about it, it's an easy fix.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead and open this up to my colleagues.
We talked about this text earlier. If we can put it up. This is when you got back from vacation, Mr. Gilardi. You say that regarding the refund, which is what he had asked you about, can we get that money back from the check that you had cashed? Clearly, I need to get it back to you. But you had spent my anticipated profit. Mm-hmm. So you knew at the time you spent the anticipated profit that he had canceled the job.
No, I did not. At the time that I had spent the anticipated profits, I had no reason to believe that he canceled it. I believe at that time he had said that let's pause it, but let's do the bench first, and as long as that comes out good.
And you figured it was safe to cash that.
I actually thought that we were still probably going to go forward with the buffet cabinets.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. The parties are excused while we deliberate in this matter. Thank you.
Okay, we have deliberated and we've reached a unanimous verdict. Now, this case involved some poor communication and perhaps some poor woodwork. But, Mr. Buckland, there's no way for Mr. Gilardi to know that you weren't happy with his services unless you tell him. And in fact, it's a little confusing when you give him additional jobs to do. However, one thing you did make clear is that you wanted to pause the buffet work. Mr. Gilardi, you were aware of that. You were aware that he didn't want you to cash a check, which you had already cashed, but you understood that you owed him money. And that much is clear. That's where the communication was clear here, that you understood that you owed him the agreed upon amount of $2,565. You did pay him off some money, and I believe we have totaled $1,465, leaving $1,100. And that's why our verdict is in favor of the plaintiff for $1,100. And as to the counterclaim, you simply didn't prove the counterclaim, Mr. Gilardi. That is dismissed. That is the verdict of the court. Thank you.